It was dawn. The village had not yet woken up. The sky was pale, and a light mist was rising from the fields. In front of a house there was the father's last glance and the son's hurried steps. The Sardar picked up his suitcase and went out into the yard. His father, Hassan Atta, stood silently by the window, an old rosary in his hand and a whisper of Bismillah on his lips. "Are you leaving, my son?" he said. The Sardar smiled, but there was a coldness in his gaze. "Yes, father, the city is waiting for me. I will manage my affairs myself. Now I am independent." His father looked at him. There was neither anger nor joy in this gaze, only heartache. "My son, the world is big, but don't lose heart in that big world. Wealth doesn't make you a man, but prayer keeps you." The chieftain fell silent. He didn't want to hear these words. It was hard for him to look into his father's eyes. "Father, I'm an adult now. Your advice is good, but times have changed. I'll find my own way." His father smiled slowly, but this smile was bitter. He extended his hand to his son. "Okay, my son, just let me ask you something while you're leaving. Don't go on a journey without permission, not to me, but to Allah. Say Bismillah." The chieftain said Bismillah involuntarily, but not from the heart, on the tip of his tongue. His mother was standing at the door, tears in her eyes, a handkerchief in her hand. He wanted to hug his son, but Sardar hurriedly picked up his suitcase. "Mom, don't cry. I'll be back soon. I'll be rich. I'll buy you a house, a car. You won't lack for anything." The mother smiled, but her heart was broken. "We didn't give you a house. We gave you a prayer, my son. You don't need a car. We give you a blessing." With these words, Sardar set off. As he walked away from the courtyard, the wind blew a page of the Quran on the wall. The verse that caught his eye was, "And your Lord has commanded that you worship none but Him, and that you be kind to your parents." Sardar didn't see this verse. He got on the bus heading towards the city. Looking out the window, his father was still standing at the door. He raised his hand, praying, "O God, do not let this son of mine go astray. There is still a little light in his heart. Do not extinguish it." The bus set off. The road was long. The hills, fields, dusty roads were left behind. The Sardar looked back. His father's house was no longer visible. But something remained in a corner of his heart. He didn't know, but it was the shadow of his father's prayer. As the city gate approached, the sun rose. Golden rays illuminated the road. The Sardar whispered to himself, "I will start a new life." But a bird began to circle in the sky, as if it was watching a shadow coming after it. The city was waiting for him, with its bright advertisements, tall buildings, noise, and crowds. But there was something missing in this light. No prayer. That night, Father Hassan left the house. He looked at the stars, tears in his eyes, words on his lips. "My God, I prayed for him. Now I entrust him to you." He looked at the stars, slowly turning the rosary in his hand. Each one had one word, "My child." And the stars lit up in the sky. Each one was a reflection of his father's prayer. The sun had risen when the bus reached the city gate. A new life was beginning between iron and glass, but there was no love in that life. Sardar got off the bus. The streets were crowded, cars were honking, people were running. He mixed himself with this crowd. At every step there were advertisements, bright lights, a new phone, a new car. This was the city of dreams, so close, but in reality so far away. Sardar found a job in a small sales office, advertising, sales, money. He worked at night. In the morning, he slept. Money came, time went. But his heart was silent. One day, he looked in the mirror. There was no childhood in his eyes, only fatigue and pride. "I am getting rich," he said to himself. "No one will advise me any more." But that night he had a dream. In a dream, his father appeared to him, sitting in a field, spinning a rosary. Looking at him, he said, "My son, remember your heart. Wealth does not fill the heart, it only weighs it down." The commander woke up, but he tried to forget this dream. Work, money, friends, everything again dragged him into the bustle. Days, months passed. He bought a new house, a car, clothes, friends. But his heart was still empty. One night he was left alone in the office. The city lights were twinkling through the window. He just sat quietly, looking at his phone. Numbers, clients, contracts. But his heart was silent. At that moment, the phone rang. The screen said, "Father." He looked for a long time, but did not answer. The ringing stopped. He looked in the mirror. His eyes were tired, but there was no sadness in them. There was pride. He whispered, "I'm not ready yet. I'll call you later." But that later never came. A few months later, when he was working late again in the office, rain fell on the window. The sound of the drops reminded him of his childhood. He seemed to hear his father's voice. "My son, if you forget to pray, the road will be dark." The commander grabbed his heart, but he called this feeling tired again. The next day he bought a new car. He threw himself into work, trying not to stop. But every night, as he went to sleep, one word would echo in his mind: "Father." He would pick up his phone, but he wouldn't dare to dial the number. Years passed in that time. One day he attended a grand reception. The rich, the laughter, the music. But suddenly an old man entered, a rosary in his hand, a light on his face. He looked at the guests and said, "Wealth makes you appear, but prayer makes you live. If there is no prayer behind anyone, his back is empty." The chief froze in place. These words resonated with him as if his father's voice had returned. He couldn't sleep long that night. He saw the city lights going out through the window. The noise also subsided. Only his heart whispered, "Father, have I forgotten you?" That night he closed his eyes for the last time, and a light appeared in his heart. This light was still weak, but alive. The next day a letter arrived in the mail. The address was Father Hassan, Kishlok. But the letter was old and yellowed. It had been written years ago, but it had only just arrived. He opened it. It was written in his father's handwriting. "I have been following you with prayers, my son. If one day the world tires your heart, this letter will find you, because prayers never fade." The chieftain held the letter and sat silently. Tears flowed from his eyes, but these were not tears of regret, but tears of awakening. He whispered, "Father, I will return." The wind blew in through the window and ruffled the pages of the letter. The last words were, "Have you lost your way? Prayer will bring you back." The captain looked out the window. The rain was falling again. But this time, every drop felt like God's mercy. The city woke up to dawn again. The streets were noisy, but Sardar's house was quiet. He sat on the table, still staring at the letter he had received yesterday. The letter was old, yellowed, and the edges of the paper were torn. But there was still light in it, as if time had added strength to these words. He slowly opened the letter. Inside were words written by his father's hand. A prayer in every line, a heart in every word. My child, I have watched you with a prayer. Even if life takes you far, I have entrusted you to God. When the world tires you, this letter will find you, because a father's prayer knows the way. Sardar held the letter in his hand and fell silent. His eyes grew dim, his heart beat fast. Each line fell like fire into his heart. I remember you as a child, a small Quran in your hand, light in your eyes. Where is that light now, my child? Did you lose it in the city fire? The Sardar lost himself. He cried silently. These tears were tears that had not been collected for years. At that moment, the wind came through the window and moved the pages of the letter. It was as if his father's hand was there, caressing it. My child, I have forgiven you, because a father's heart cannot give up on a child. But no, the hardest thing in the world is to walk without prayer. When the Sardar read these words, his heart clenched. It was as if something inside him had broken, but rays came out of this breakage. He slowly got up and looked in the mirror. There were tears in his eyes, but they were no longer dead. These eyes were alive, searching eyes. He whispered, I had forgotten him. I am walking without his prayers. That is why my heart is cold. The chief pressed the letter to his chest. He heard his heart. A voice was waking up in it. Return, return, my child. The father's prayers have not yet disappeared. He opened the window. Amid the sounds of the city, the call to prayer was heard from afar. This call to prayer had seemed to him like an ordinary sound before, but this time it shook his heart. He knelt down. For the first time in years, he closed his eyes and said, My God, I am tired. Wealth has not filled me. Return my heart, if possible, forgive me. The letter was still in his hand amidst his tears. The heart was beating, but now there was something in every beat, light. The next day, Sardar didn't go to work. He simply walked around the city, quietly, thoughtfully. He saw himself in the faces of everyone, people in a hurry, tired, but with a quiet heart. At one point, he stopped in front of a mosque. The sound of the Quran was heard from inside. He stood at the door and listened. This sound reminded him of his childhood. He did not dare to enter, he just stood there silently. But from inside, he heard the words of the Imam. Every path goes astray, but a father's prayer returns. Sardar was about to faint, as if these words were spoken to him. He closed his eyes, his lips whispered, I will return, Father. With these words, the cold in his heart melted. This was just the beginning. He hasn't found forgiveness yet, but he's starting to look for it now. He refolds the letter and puts it in his pocket. The wind blows again, the pages flutter. It's as if his father's blessing is following him on the wind. After reading the letter, Sardar felt both peace and pain in his heart. He knew he had to return, but he didn't know where to start. One night, he sat by the window and picked up his phone. Among the contacts, that word came from afar. Mom, heart. His heart sank. He hadn't called this number in years. He paused with his finger on the screen. The wind blew. The raindrops hit the glass, sounding like a heartbeat. Finally, he dialed the number. The bell rang for a long time, but there was no answer. He tried again. Again, silence. Something icy passed through Sardar's heart. This silence was strange, as if the silence itself was a cry. The next day, he called his former neighbor. A familiar voice from the village, from his childhood home, answered, Yes, Sardar. Hello, sister. Mom, how are you? A long silence. Only the sound of breathing could be heard on the phone. Then a low, trembling voice. "Sardor John, your mother passed away last year, my child." "What?" The phone fell from Sardor's hand. The world seemed to stop. His eyes looked up, his heart froze. At that moment, his whole life flashed before his eyes. His mother's prayers, laughter, the warm embrace of childhood nights. And the words he said as he left for the last time. "Don't cry, I'm watching you with my prayers." He heard those words in his heart now, but it was too late. He knelt down. He put his hand to his face. The tears wouldn't stop. "Mom, I'm late. I'm calling you, but your voice doesn't answer." The wind blew past the window. The rain intensified. Thunder rumbled in the sky. Sardor raised his head, only tears and regret in his eyes. He was crying, but this was no longer an ordinary cry. This was a cry of love, gratitude, and forgiveness that had been silent for years. That night he couldn't sleep. He sat with the letter in his hand until dawn. It seemed to him that he could hear his father's words. "My son, I forgive you. Your mother is silent, but her prayers are still with you." Sardor slowly got up. He opened the window and the rain hit his face. He whispered, "Mom, I remembered you. I will return. I will live in prayer now." He knelt down and for the first time put his heart on the ground. Not tears, but repentance flowed from his eyes. He was late, but it was not yet too late. The next day he quit his job. He sold his car. Only one suitcase with a letter from his father and an old scarf from his mother. He left the city. The bus was passing by again, but this time it was going in the opposite direction. The sun was setting along the road. Golden rays illuminated the fields. He whispered from his heart, "Mom, I am returning. I am searching for you in prayer." As the bus moved farther away, the city lights went out, but the sky was filled with stars. Every star shone like its mother's blessing. The bus traveled a long way. The city was left behind. Sardar looked out the window, but all he saw was a shadow of his past life. He was silent inside. His father's letter in his hand, his mother's scarf next to him. His heart trembled with every breath, but this trembling was no longer fear, but self-awareness. In the middle of the road, he turned on his phone. Hundreds of messages appeared on the screen. "Your office has been closed. Your project has been canceled. Your account is in the minus." He closed his eyes. This was unexpected, but a voice from inside his heart said, "There is no blessing where there is no prayer." Sardar bowed his head. He had once proudly said, "I will find my own way." Now these words had fallen on his heart like a heavy stone. He remembered his father's words, "Wealth will make you great, but only prayer will save you." The Sardar had lost everything. Work, home, friends, nothing remained. Only himself and his mistakes. He spent the night in a small hotel. Rain was pouring outside the window. He knelt down and put his head in his hands. "God, I considered myself rich and distanced myself from you. Now I am poor, but I want to be with you." He cried. This was no longer a person's breaking, this was his purification. At dawn he woke up. Next to him was his father's letter. He read, "Life will break you, my son, but breaking is not a bad thing. Sometimes, if the heart is not broken, the light cannot enter it." He pressed the letter to his chest. Then he picked up his phone and called the number Father. After a long silence, a familiar voice from his old age said, "Sardar, is that you, my son?" He started crying. "Yes, father, it's me. I'm late." "Okay, my son, okay. Go back. Go home." There was no anger in his father's voice, only longing, love, and prayers. "I used to pray for you every day, Sardar. Every time I turned the rosary, one of the beads was for you. Now Allah has brought you back, so He still loves you." Sardar cried silently. The pride that had accumulated in his heart over the years now flowed like water. He said, "Father, I have lost everything." His father said, "No, my son, you have found the most important thing, prayer. Now I do not owe you anything, but you owe yourself. Fill your heart, forgive yourself." These words shook Sardar. He immediately got on the bus. He headed towards the village. Fields could be seen along the road. The sky was clear, the wind was pure. Every sight brought peace to his heart. He felt Allah had tested him but had not abandoned him. He used to think that in every misfortune, prayer was not heard. But now he knew, prayer is always enough, only if the heart is open. He whispered to himself, "Father, I will pay my debt. Now I will live with you in prayer." As the bus passed through the fields, the sun rose in the sky. A white cloud above it, it looked like a bird's wing. The captain clutched his heart and said, "Father, I'm coming back." The bus was moving slowly through the fields. Sardar looked out the window, as if he recognized every tree and every hill. Years ago, he had taken this road. Now he was returning. But this road was different now. He had been in a hurry then. He didn't dare to look back. Today, he looks at every scene with his heart. Wheat was ripening in the fields. The sun was shining softly on the horizon. The wind was blowing from the hills as if praying. Sardar held his heart and whispered, "God, I am late, but I have found my way. Forgive me, and don't forgive my father." The bus stopped at the village bus stop. Sardar picked up his suitcase and walked slowly. Along the road, there were familiar smells. The smell of damp earth, baking bread, and grass. These smells reminded him of his childhood. Every step he took was heartbreaking. The sound of the Quran, heard in every house, seemed to be telling him something. The prayer for you has not yet ended. He finally reached his courtyard. The gate was old, its colors had faded. It was as if the sounds of those childhood games could be heard through the walls. He slowly opened the gate. There was silence inside. Only the wind blew and fluttered the window curtains. He stopped at the entrance. In front of the door was his mother's old scarf. He bent down, grabbed it, and pressed it to his chest. Tears welled up in his eyes again. "Mom, I came late, but I'm back." He went inside. The courtyard was quiet. In one corner, the Quran stood closed. Beside him, his father's rosary. He took the rosary in his hand, cold but familiar. A radiant voice seemed to echo through the rosary. "My son." He clutched his heart. He closed his eyes. At that moment, the door slowly opened. There stood Hassan Atta, a white-haired, thin, but radiant-faced man. He was silent, but there were words in his eyes. The Sardar froze. For a moment, he could not breathe. Then he knelt down. "Father, I have returned. I had forgotten you. Now I only remember you. Forgive me." The father remained silent. He held the rosary in his hand and walked slowly. He came to the Sardar. He placed his hand on his son's head. "My son, I have never offended you. I prayed for you every night. Every time I turned the rosary, you were in my heart." Sardar cried. His father hugged him. This hug destroyed all the walls that had stood between them for years. They sat in silence. Only the wind blew. His father said, "The blessing has returned, my son, because the prayer has returned." That night, Sardar sat at home without leaving. His father read the Quran next to him, and he listened silently. Every verse filled his heart with warmth. The sun rose in the morning. His father said, "Every morning is a new birth, my son. If your heart is pure, the pain of yesterday will strengthen you today." Sardar smiled, but with tears in his eyes. "Father, I will never leave you alone again." The father smiled. "Don't abandon me, my son, but the prayer, because I will go, but the prayer will remain with you." At that moment the wind blew. The sky was clear. Hearts were calm. Peace was at home. And that peace was the greatest wealth. It is evening. The village is silent. Only the evening call to prayer is heard from the minaret of the mosque. Two people are sitting quietly in the courtyard, Hassan Atta and Sardar. They don't talk much. Now words are not needed. Hearts are talking. The father reads the Quran, and Sardar listens to each verse and memorizes it by heart. Those nights were long but peaceful. Every time the moon rises, Sardar looks at the sky. He now sees the stars differently. Before, it was an ordinary sky. Now, a textbook full of the remembrance of Allah. The father asks quietly, "My son, what is in your heart?" Sardar is silent. His eyes are filled with tears. "Regret, father." "Good," said the father, "because regret is the door to forgiveness." Sardar smiles. He had known these words before, but he had not felt them. The father continued, "Allah forgives us, but if we do not forgive ourselves, forgiveness will not be complete." The chief bowed his head. "I saw my mother Lake, father." "Your mother forgave you, my son, because mothers forgive in silence." Silence. Only the soft sound of the rosary could be heard. Every night they went to the mosque. The father stood behind the imam next to the chief. The shoulder that had been without a father for years now warmed. One night, after prayer, the chief looked at his father. "Father, how can I repay my debt to you?" The father smiled. "I did not lend you alone, my son. I prayed for you. Now you pass that prayer on to others." This word sank into Sardar's heart like a nail, and he could not sleep that night. He thought, "How many years have I lived for myself? Now it is time to live for someone with prayers." The next day he swept the courtyard of the mosque. He taught the children to read the Quran. He found peace in every small movement. His father watched from afar. Joy on his face, gratitude in his heart. One day he said, "Now I am at peace, my son, because I sent you with prayers. Now I have the fortune to return you with prayers." Sardar laughed. Tears welled up in his eyes. "Father, I can't live without you anymore." The father smiled. "I will never leave, my son. I will stay in prayers. Every time you pray, I will be here." The nights were peaceful. They recited the Quran, drank tea, and listened to the silence. This silence was healing. One night the sky was clear. The stars were shining. The wind was gentle. The father was sitting by the window next to the Sardar. The father said, "My son, life is a long journey. We will leave, but prayers will remain. Therefore, live each day as if it were your last, with gratitude." The Sardar looked at him, smiled. "I learned gratitude from you, father." The father turned the rosary, said, "And I learned patience from you." They were silent. Only the pages of the Quran swayed gently in the moonlight. The wind outside, the prayer inside. Father and son. Two hearts, one quiet night. The morning air was cool, the sky was clear. The sound of prayer sounded from the mosque. The birds woke up in the yard, flapping their wings, and the breeze rustled the leaves. Hassan Atta was sitting by the window, a rosary in his hand. Sardar was making tea. Today everything was ordinary, but there was a strange feeling in his heart, as if this morning was a different morning. The father asked, "Son, do you know that every morning a prayer rises to the sky?" Sardar smiled. "Yes, father, I feel your prayers every morning." The father looked at him and smiled. "Today I will pray for you once again, because this prayer will remain in your heart forever." Sardar was silent. The father raised his hand. His eyes were closed, a calm light on his face. "O Allah, forgive this son of mine, because he was lost, but he returned. I forgave him, now you forgive him too. Give patience to his heart, truth to his tongue, and blessings to his life. If he goes astray again, do not lead him astray, because there is light in his heart, and I asked you for it." The chief was watching, tears in his eyes. Every word was like fire in his heart, but this pain was healing. The father finished his prayer. He put his hand to his face. At that moment the wind blew. The beads of the rosary slowly scattered. Each bead fell to the ground like a prayer. The chief knelt down and held his father's hand. "Father, I cannot live without you." The father smiled. "I left you a prayer, my son. Now I am not angry with you." He tried to get up, but his heart sank. The chief ran and caught him. The father said softly, "Don't be afraid, my son. Every prayer returns to its owner. I am now going to the most beautiful place, taking my prayers." The chief cried, "Father, please don't leave." The father smiled and put his hand on his face. "I will not leave, my son. Now I live in every prayer of yours." He said, "Bismillah," for the last time. He closed his eyes. A smile appeared on his face. The courtyard was filled with light. The chief cried and pressed his father's hand to his face. This hand was no longer cold. It was warm, peaceful, pure. He took the Quran. The father continued where he had read. Every verse filled his heart with light. And the wind blew softly, playing with the beads of the rosary on its shoulders. A line of light appeared in the sky, as if a prayer was rising to the sky. The leader looked out the window, his eyes tearful, but his heart calm. He whispered, "Father, I can carry your prayer on my shoulders. Now I will make others live with prayer." At that moment the birds soared into the sky. The sound of their wings sounded like an amen. The sun rose in the sky. There was light in the morning. This light was the Father's prayer. Morning. The call to prayer sounded from the minaret of the mosque. Light in the sky, peace on the ground. In the courtyard, Sardar was sprinkling water, while his father was sitting by the window. The air was warm, but there was a heavy feeling in his heart, as if this morning was a different morning, the end of an era. The father said, "Son, I had a dream last night." "What was the dream, father?" The father smiled. "I was walking in the field, and you were watching me from afar. I raised my hand to you, and you raised it in return. But there was a great light between us. I could not pass through that light." The Sardar was silent. His eyes filled with tears, his heart clenched. He felt that this dream was, in fact, a sign of imminent departure. The father continued, "My son, don't forget 3 things in life: gratitude, patience, and prayer. Gratitude brings you blessings. Patience tests you. Prayer brings you back to Allah." The chief bowed his head. "Father, I learned everything too late." The father smiled. A good lesson is never too late, my son. Allah delays, but He does not abandon. The chief held his father's hand. The hand was cold, but the warmth emanating from his heart was still there. The father said softly, "I taught you through trials. Now you teach others through prayers." The chief cried, "Father, I am afraid. What will I do without you?" The father smiled, "I am now yours, my son. Every time you pray, I hear you. Every time you open the Quran, I am with you. Every time you give charity, I am grateful." The Sardar put his hand on his heart. "So I am not alone, father?" "Never, my son. Allah never leaves a servant alone to whom He has once given light." The father looked out the window. The sun was rising above the horizon. He said, "This light is like our life. It rises, shines, and then sets. But setting is not a loss. Setting is a rest to rise again." The Sardar raised his head, watched the sky. Pain in his heart, but peace. The father said again, "My son, if one day I am not there, go to the mosque. I will be there. Teach the children the Quran. Every letter is a charity for me." The commander smiled and closed his eyes. "I will remember you every morning with a prayer, father. Then I will answer you every morning, my son." They fell silent. Only the sound of birds, the wind, and the sound of the rosary could be heard. This silence was stronger than words. It was evening. The commander turned on the lamp, opened the Quran. His father was sitting next to him, a quiet smile on his lips. Each verse sounded like the last conversation. The father said, "My son, each verse is a letter from Allah. I wrote you one letter, but He sends you thousands of letters every day." Sardar cried, but this cry was no longer pain, it was gratitude. Gratitude for the Father's light. Gratitude for the return of the prayer. Gratitude for the lessons of life. That night the sky was filled with stars. The father was silent. Sardar was reading the Quran, and the stars were listening to the last conversation between them. Morning. Fog over the village, but this fog is not cold. It is warm, transparent. Sardar is going to the mosque. He has his father's old rosary in his hand, peace in his heart. After the death of Hassan father, the courtyard has become silent. But this silence is not sad, it is peace, as if the courtyard is still filled with prayers. Every morning, Sardar sprinkles water on the courtyard. Then he reads the Quran, and between each verse he whispers, "O Allah, this verse is for my father." The wind blows. Each time the pages gently sway, as if the sky is answering, "It has been accepted." At night, Sardar teaches children to read the Quran in the mosque. When each little child pronounces a letter correctly, he smiles. He knows each letter is a light for his father. A boy asked, "Teacher, why do you say Bismillah every time before reading?" The leader smiled. "Because every good deed that begins without a prayer becomes just a word. But a prayerful deed becomes a light." The children fell silent. Only the sound of the Quran echoed on the walls of the mosque. This sound was the most beautiful music of life. Every month he goes to his father's cemetery. He places flowers, remains silent, he does not speak, because a prayer is heard not with words, but with the heart. The wind blows, the leaves rustle, and as if someone whispers, "My child." The leader smiled. "Father, I am your prayer." He looks at the sky. The sun is rising in the sky. Its rays illuminate the courtyard, the mosque, and the fields. Everything is filled with the same light. He whispered in his heart, "Prayer never dies. It only revolves in the sky until it finds its owner." Sardar now prays for others, the lonely, the orphaned, the lost. Every time he prays, a light burns in his heart. One night he is sitting by the window, reading the Quran. The stars are shining outside. Suddenly, he looks up at the sky, and among the stars, one light shines brighter. He whispered, "Father, you are still watching, right?" The wind blew. The curtains on the window swayed slowly, as if someone answered, "Yes, my child." Sardar smiles, closes his eyes. His heart is at peace. He is no longer just living, he is living. Dawn breaks. The call to prayer sounds from the mosque. The lights in the sky thicken, as if a luminous path opens to the sky. The beads of the rosary begin to spin again, but this time it is not the Father who spins it, but the Son. Every bead is a prayer, every word is light. The sky above, the earth below, and light in his heart. The leader said softly, "Father, you did not leave. You stayed with me." The sun rose in the sky. This was no longer an ordinary morning. This was the radiance of a prayer.